Guys, in this video we're going to go over the Chapter 1 tax return assignment. There's two problems in here, two tax return assignments. Basically, instead of learning about each part of the tax return in depth, we start by just learning about the whole thing, but with simple situations. Be sure that you watch the Chapter 1 videos, or I might turn them into one video, but be sure you watched all of that because I go over the old tax return, Form 1040, and our current tax return that we're going to go over right here, and kind of the changes in the different sections. So here we are on page 1. Here's the problem right here. Alex is single, lives at, social security number, graduated from college, works as a video game developer, has a W-2 with these amounts. He had qualifying health care at all times, prepares 1040, input value as positive numbers, and round your final answers to the nearest whole dollar amount. And then we're going to use tax tables to calculate the tax. So you can always tell how many pages there are to the return and what forms you're filling out by what's automatically here in the tabs in Connect. So we're going to start here, filing status. Okay, it said his filing status was single, right? So you really want to read these problems. They're going to get bigger and bigger throughout the class. Start by reading the problem and taking time there. And if you do have the problem in a book, you can check off everything as you enter it. That's really helpful too, or print out just the problem and do that as well. So filing status, then his personal information, his first and last name, his address, where he lives. This is where we check off a box, full year health coverage, indicating he had that. They didn't tell us if he wanted to contribute $3 to the presidential election campaign, so you would assume no. You get his social security number here. And then this is where they would sign, or a paid preparer would enter their information. So you can click this button or go to page 2. Page 2 is where we have all of the informational amounts. So we start with wages, and that goes on line 1, and then we have kind of our most common income amounts, interest, dividends, retirement income, pensions, IRAs, annuity, social security benefits. And then we have non-taxable amounts go here. Taxable amounts go in this column over here. So the next problems we do in Chapter 2 will have a Schedule 1, and they'll have other types of income and adjustments to income. You can see them listed here. Now, all of these schedules used to be on the same Form 1040, and that's what I go over in the first video. But because it just kind of helps see the flow to see how they all used to be on 2 pages. So essentially, if you have anything on these 2 pages, then that amount comes here. And then adjusted gross income is combining lines 1 through 6. It seems like they updated this. And so adjusted gross income is this concept. The adjustments to income that are on Schedule 1 are specifically called adjustments for AGI. And then we have an adjustment from AGI, which means it's below in this equation that we're working our way down in, but we're going to go in order. So adjusted gross income in this case is the same exact amount as his wages, right? Because there's nothing else to consider. Now, notice that we had to round down. It was $61,011.30. And so because if this was 0.5, we would have rounded up. If it was 0.5 or higher, we would have rounded up to $61,012. Since it's below 0.5, we round down. Now, look, there's a lot of other boxes here. So if you're wondering what to do, go head into Google, good old Google, and search Form W-2. You can click the first option that comes up, and it looks like this. Scroll down, PDF link. This is what the Form W-2 looks like. You've probably seen one before. And these are the same box numbers, 1, 2. Wages, tips, other compensation, federal income tax withheld. Now these boxes, as you'll learn in the chapter, Medicare wages is a flat tax. It's 2.9%, and employees split that with their employer, 1.45% each. It's a flat tax that applies to all income. Social Security is a regressive tax because it just applies to the first 120,000 or so. The amount changes a little bit each year, the exact amount of wages. So typically, people just have these amounts, Social Security and Medicare, withheld from their paycheck, and it never affects their taxes. And that's kind of a more complicated situation that we don't even cover in this kind of basic income tax class. But if you exceed that limit, or if there's some sort of mistake where the amounts withheld were too high, you can check these amounts. If you're an employee, Medicare wages is 1.45%. You can just times it by the total amount of your paycheck and see if the amount withheld was correct. Social Security is a bit higher at 7.65%. Okay. Back over here. So all we're going to use is box 1 and 2. So continuing down here, we were at adjusted gross income. Line 8 says enter the standard deduction, otherwise attached Schedule A. So this line is either the standard deduction or the itemized deductions, which is an entire category of expenses that we'll learn about, called the itemized deductions, and they're on Schedule A. So you get to take whichever is greater based on filing status. So see, his filing status was single, so it's $12,000. If you're married or filing joint, $24,000. Head of household, which is a special filing status that you qualify for if you have a child or dependent that you take care of alone, $18,000 in the middle. So we get the single amount, $12,000. We deduct that. Line 10 is taxable income. So here we have $49,011. Line 11, tax. So how do we get this number? How do we get that tax number? We need to use this $49,000, and we're going to use the fact that he's single, and we're going to look at this tax table. So you just open the tax table, click it. It's a link. And we're going to use the tables to figure out what his taxes are. Now, yes, you can see that number, but you want to know how this works. Come on. It's taking a long time. So then our next lines, we have spaces for non-refundable tax credits. And so then we subtract those. This is just a subtotal. You can see the software calculating the subtotal. Nothing to subtract, so we just bring down the total tax. I'll show you how we get this number in a moment. And then we have other taxes, Schedule 4, we don't have any, 0, so we just bring down the total again. And then we have federal income tax withheld from the W-2. So this should be this box 2 amount, $6,866.10. So we just round down, knock off the change, $6,866. So if $6,725 is the amount of tax that we calculated on the tax return, what is this amount? $6,866 that was federal withheld on the W-2, that's the amount of taxes paid in. So does this person have a refund or do they have a tax due? It even says these are your total payments. This is like the amount we paid, which is more than the taxes. So in this case, we'd have a refund. A lot of times people think because they have a refund or a tax due that, oh, I had a refund last year, I owe money this year, I must have paid more in taxes. That's not necessarily true, right? The refund amount or the payment due has nothing to do with this number, what your taxes actually are. Come on. So if you're using direct deposit, which usually when you e-file these days, you'll use direct deposit, you'll be asked to enter your bank account number, checking, savings. We don't really use this for the examples, just doing basic examples. And you can see these sections are labeled refund, amount you owe. So if these two situations were reversed and the amount withheld, right, from our paychecks was actually smaller than the amount owed, or the amount of tax calculated here, then we would owe an amount that would be listed down here. So here we go. These are called the tax tables. And if your income's under 100,000, you use these. So you can see if line 10, which they have in parentheses, taxable income. So line 10, that was our taxable income, 49,011. If taxable income is at least the amount in column 1, but less than the amount in column 2, then you find that range, okay? And you go to the right and you say, okay, what's the filing status? Single, married filing joint, married filing separate, or head of household. We're single. Someone made $160, so they're in between $150 and $175. They're going to owe $16 of tax. What if they made $200? Well, if they made $200, you might be tempted to go right here, right? No, because it's not less than this column. It has to be less than the second column, so we would go down here, at least this amount, and their tax would be 21. So let's look at the tax for our person. We'll scroll down, 49,000. Here we go. 49,011. So that's going to be in between this first line. Single is the first, so that's 6725, which is 6725, and that's where they got that number. Okay, that's all. Head over to the forum to post your questions, and you can do the second return yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye.